Hello, friends. This is Pastor Ron. I'm so glad that you joined us today for our second lesson on hospital visitation. We're going to be posting this online, which means that you can watch it anytime that is convenient for you. And it'll also give you a chance maybe to grab a tablet and a pen and take some notes while we go through with this. So let me start out by saying that when it comes to hospital visits, it's so important for us to understand the purpose of a hospital visit is to, first and foremost, to show and to share the love of and the presence of God, and that your visit should focus on making them feel loved, cared for, and comforted. By the way, a big part of Jesus' ministry and heart was to minister to the sick. And did you know that 28 out of Jesus's recorded 37 miracles had to do with healing? And that makes it so vitally important that hospital ministry becomes an important part of our church, and we're so pleased that you have decided to join us in that important part, important spiritual aspect when our people are in the hospital. I think personally that it's the calling of the church to be there for the people who are in our hospitals, our nursing homes, our rehab units, hospice, or even being at home under home recovery. And yet at the same time that this is a very difficult ministry. I don't make any bones about that. It's very difficult, but it's one that Jesus faced head on. Here's kind of a sad statistic. Out of every 100 people, only 41% are visited in an outpatient department, and in the emergency department, only 45 out of 100 people are visited. And that statistic is troubling because that means that over 40% of the people, when they are the most vulnerable, they don't have anybody to visit them. They don't have a familiar face to comfort them or to help them through this difficult time in their life. And the number one reason for that is because people who would visit feel too uncomfortable to visit. And I hope over the period of these lessons that we can change that by offering you some of these hospital guidelines. And by the way, a review, I'd like to go over just some of the basic principles of hospital stays, and I covered that in the first lesson, and we will get back to that a little bit later. And my suggestion to you is that maybe a hospital visit should last 15 to 20 minutes. Now, that's not a solid rule, obviously, because there are times that a visit of that length of time is inadequate to meet the patient's needs. And for us, that requires kind of a keen sensitivity to what's going on in the patient and in the family. For example, let's say you're visiting somebody and the patient is showing tears. That is not a time to get up and leave. That's a time to ask them a question like, could you tell me where the tears are coming from? Why the tears? And that opens up a door of opportunity for them to share with you what they're feeling, what the feelings are behind those tears. Or another example would be the medical needs may require you to have an early departure. They may be coming in for some tests to be run, or the patient has some needs that have to be addressed. And that just comes with, I think some experience and just some personal observation, and then listening very carefully to the patient or the family. That will help you decide a little bit on how long the visit should be required. When the patient says something like, thank you for coming, I surely appreciate your visit today, that can be an indication that the visit needs to be drawn to an end. And they're really saying to you that I have some needs that need to be addressed, or I need more rest, or whatever might be going on. So they're very gently and carefully and really inviting you to leave that visit at that particular time. This is such an important ministry for all of us in the church, but especially for you who have signed up, because people are sick and they're oftentimes in the hospital bed. that means it's crucial for us to visit them. And it's also important that you remember that you are a representative of Jesus when a parishioner is at their most vulnerable and weakest moments. And the main goal, again, is for you to show them the love and the care of Jesus Christ. And here's something that is really important, and we need to just remember this every time we go to a hospital or a rehab or you visit somebody in their home. The visit is for them and not for you. The visit is always about them and not about us. So check yourself out, or check yourself at the door of the hospital, and make the focus of your visit the needs of the patient. And the most effective visits are done with love and concern for the patient and the family. In fact, when you study the life of Jesus and his ministry to the sick, I mean, who was Jesus focusing on? He wasn't focusing on himself. He was focusing on the lame and the sick and even the dying. And that, folks, needs to be our ultimate goal. That is, when you walk into the room, it is Jesus they see, Jesus they hear, and they see his love for them. And your visit, by the way, can increase their own relationship with Christ, and their faith and hope just might be increased because of your visit. At their most vulnerable moment, they are witnessing through your presence the practical proof that God loves them and he cares about them. And hospital visits provide the opportunity to put Jesus front and center of a person's life. And by the way, the hospital visit may also give you an opportunity to share Jesus Christ, either with the patient or perhaps with a family member. So I encourage you to kind of keep that in mind as well. So remember, and you may want to write this down, your goal in hospital visits is for the patient and the family to feel comforted and loved by Jesus Christ. That's why your hospital visit is such an important part of our church's ministry, because you represent not only our church, but you represent Jesus Christ in all of his compassion, love, and concern for the patient, the family, and even the hospital staff. And you may have an opportunity to minister to that hospital staff that you didn't even plan on. And you may have an opportunity to even share Christ with a hospital staff member and to help them, or maybe a family member, to put their trust in the Lord, and really even to remind them that God loves them and cares for them. I have, over the years, numerous times have pulled a hospital employee to the side and asked, may I pray for you? And I've had a chance to pray for them, and even to witness for Christ. So it's a marvelous opportunity in so many ways of sharing the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, if you took my first class, you might remember that I spoke a little bit how patients, when they have visitors, may feel the need to entertain us. They feel like you came to visit them, now I've got to do something for you. And you want to move them from being in the entertainment mode to a place of rest and comfort. And you do that by showing them the real love and care of Jesus Christ, and focusing on what their needs are by asking questions like, how are you doing today? How are you feeling today? Could you tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life at this time? What have you heard the doctor say to you about your treatment plan? And it's a great time for them to invite them to share their feelings with you, because that's what shows up as far as them being real and genuine with you. And that's when oftentimes the tears will come. And you might even say something like, you know what? It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. Even Jesus cried. So as a hospital visitor, your presence offers them so much encouragement, hope, and love, care, and safety. And by that word safety, I mean it's a safe environment for them, that they can be who they are, and they can share their story with you, and they can openly express their feelings with you, and that you can be listening to them and reflecting to them what you are hearing. because a patient is very vulnerable. They feel vulnerable because everything is being done to them from the medical side of things. And you can help them by making them feel safe, by uplifting and encouraging them. So for just a few minutes in this lesson, I want to kind of give you some keys to hospital visits, and we're going to be a little repetition, but just bear with me, okay? Number one, check at the nurse's station as a courtesy to the hospital staff. You might learn something about the patient's illness, or to ensure that the visit is not out of order by listening and finding out from the nursing staff. And this is especially important in some health-related issues when you approach a door and you see there's all kinds of warnings or health precautions that need to be taken prior to entering the patient's room. For example, you may be required to put a gown on, a hairnet, gloves, mask because of the nature of their illness, or that the patient is scheduled to take some tests while you're there. So it's important to find out from the nursing staff exactly what might be going on, especially if you enter or approach the room, I should say, you knock on the door and they're not there. It's okay to go back to the nursing station and say, I'm sorry, but so-and-so isn't in their hospital room. Should I wait for them, or is this going to be a prolonged time that they're going to be vacant? I mean, you'll find out all kinds of information for your visit. So just bear that in mind. They're very helpful, and they're glad to guide you through that. And second, and I can't stress this often enough, befriend the other people that might be in the room, because family members might be there and they need your ministry and they need your love and care just as much as the patient does. In fact, they may be looking to you for some spiritual encouragement. So that is a good place to minister to their family members that might be there. And another one, and this is kind of a hard one because sometimes it's not really easy to adhere to, but if the patient is sleeping, I normally don't wake them, because they're there, their bodies are recovering, for example, from a procedure or something else, and they need their rest. And if you've been a hospital patient, finding rest in a hospital can be very challenging with all the outside activities and the noises going on. So what I normally do is I take a piece of paper, and if I don't happen to have one with me, I'll ask the nursing staff for a piece of paper and a pen, and I'll write a note to them. Or recently, Pat and I have some pre-made cards made up that we take with us. So if they're not there, we'll leave a note on the back side of a card that has a Bible verse in the front of it. Because that's important, because it reminds them that even though you weren't there to meet them personally, you showed up for them. And that's an indication that you cared about them. You loved them enough to be there and to even leave a note. So please do that. That's important. And then this one here is don't sit or lean on the bed. And we talked about this before, because that can be a serious discomfort to a sore body. And it was interesting, I made a hospital call not long ago, and I saw a family member doing that. And they invited me to sit on the part of the bed, and I said, no, thank you, that's what the chairs are for. And it can be dangerous because you never know what type of IV lines are running under the blanket, and you could actually squeeze them off or damage them in some way. So please offer a warm smile and a handshake if possible when you begin your visit, because even that shows that you care. And then number 5, be cautious about asking about their illness. The patient might, for example, be facing immediate surgery or a serious diagnosis such as malignancy. And the direction of your visit and its length should follow the particular needs of the patient and their situation. The visit, again, needs to be about the patient and not the visitor. So it's better if you can get as much information from the nurse's station, and the nurse might say something, I'm sorry, I cannot tell and share that information with you, but they may say, you know what, you may want to talk to them about this. I've had that happen. They've said to me, the patient's really down today, They didn't get real good news yesterday. So that kind of gives you a heads up that maybe the condition emotionally, spiritually, that patient might be in, and a family member. So it's just good to try to get some information from the nurse's station, okay? So, and then you can ask them questions like, how are you holding up? That's a question that I was a member of the Billy Graham Rapid Response Chaplains team, and that was a question that we would use. I was primarily assigned to mass shootings and police shootings, and when you're dealing with the family members with a tragic loss like that, it's very delicate, and that was one of the ways they wanted us to phrase our questions. How are you holding up? Or I like to even add, how are you feeling? You could also say, kind of with a reassuring smile, tell me what's been happening to you since you've been in the hospital. Share with me a little bit, what about God have you learned? Or what has God been doing for you or saying to you while you've been here as a patient? You learn a lot from a patient just when they start to share their illnesses or what they're feeling or what they're going through. You will be amazed how much you'll learn about them. Number 6, be sensitive to anxiety. Tragically, I think in our Christian circles today, some people, and especially patients, suppose that if you're a really upstanding, good Christian, you should never suffer fear or worry. And so they simulate courage and bravado that they really don't genuinely feel. And if you sense this happening, gently encourage them to air their negative feelings or whatever else kind of feelings that they're having. Because by venting it and sharing openly with you, it can bring a huge relief for them. And if they're saying things like, I'm fearful or I am anxious, that is a great time to bring God's promises to bear. And so I would encourage you to be prepared for that too. And number 7, be positive. When you enter a hospital room or a rehab unit or even in your home, bring a ray of sunshine if you can, please. But keep in mind too that a hospital stay or rehab stay is not a place for boisterous joking, or that's not the time for that. But a good laugh is healthy too. The Bible says that a merry heart doeth good. And so just be aware and sensitive to the patient and their needs. That's what it's always about, the patient and their needs. And then number 8, and this is really huge, listen a lot. In fact, I might do a whole class just on what we call active listening. Don't talk too much, but enough to ensure that the patient and the family, that they have been heard and that you have understood them. And you can reflect back to them statements like, what I heard you say was, or it seems to me what you're saying is. And then that gives them a chance to take ownership of the conversation. And it's okay to ask that, because they might say to you, no, that's not what I said. What I said was, and it's okay to hear that. It's perfectly fine, because you're listening to them and their needs, and that's what you're trying to understand. And even if you don't say anything and you're sitting there and you got great eye contact with them, just nod your head periodically or smile or make a gesture that they know that you are hearing them, because they'll be able to pick up on that. Because your presence says a lot to a patient. And speaking about listening and talking, I want to just add a few things. Number 1, please don't never compare experiences. Your health situation, while it may be similar, it may even look identical, is not the same for you as it was for the patient that you're visiting. So you can't compare that. And also, don't worry about always having to have an answer. I don't even always have an answer. And it's okay to say, I don't know, but I'll do my best to find out, or something like that, And that's just adequate enough, because you don't want to tell them something you're unsure of. That's not healthy for them either. And then never say hurtful things. And I'm just going to give you an example because over the years I probably have heard this more than I care to want to admit. But let's say, for example, that the patient is upset with the hospital or the doctor, and they may have had some negative experiences in this hospital. And it's so easy if they start venting to get caught up in that. And it might bring back some flashbacks of your own experiences with a hospital staff person or a doctor. And it would be real easy for you to get caught up in that and say, yeah, you know, I had a similar experience in another hospital and another doctor. That is not the road you want to take. All you may want to say to this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you feel this way and that this happened to you, and just leave it at that. You're not there to defend the hospital. You're not even there to defend God if they're angry at God. God's big enough, he can take care of it himself. And you're not there to defend a medical doctor as well. And then finally, another one is to keep in mind some words that build bridges and other words that build walls. Just be careful of the verbiage you use. And then your attitude can affect the words you use. If you're having a bad day, it's probably not wise to make a hospital visit, at least until you resolve whatever those issues are that are causing you to have these negative feelings and emotions, and you're just having a bad day. You're angry about something, upset about something. And I'm telling you, when you get there, it's really hard to just turn it on and shut it off. So if you don't feel that you can be a ray of sunshine and hope and encouragement to a patient, then don't go. Call Pat and I, and we will find somebody to take your place on that call. I would rather have you stay home and deal with whatever those negative issues are than for you to take it with you into the hospital, into the patient's room. It's not fair to them. So please be mindful of that. And then also be aware of your surroundings, your location. Sometimes you might be in a situation where there is a lot of communication and noisy activity going on around you. I know sometimes I've had to see patients when they're being tested for something and they're in the x-ray waiting room or a CAT scan waiting room, and I've gone down there to be with them, and sometimes the noise around there can be just about deafening. And I will just spend that time with them. We won't spend a whole lot of time talking. And I'll wait till they're done with the tests and follow them back up to the room where we might have more quiet and a chance to kind of personally reflect on what's been going on that morning. So just be aware of your location. And then the other one's kind of interesting along that same line is be aware of your tone of voice and your body language. Your voice, your body language is a language all in of itself. So be aware of it. Do you offer yourself in a warm and a welcoming way, or do you close your arms off, or do you shut yourself down? You don't make good eye contact, and the patient suddenly realizes that you're not paying attention to me. And you believe me, they'll pick up on it. You're not paying attention to me. You're not hearing what I have to say. So be aware of your body language, be aware of your tone of voice, and please make good eye contact. And I want to add one more thing on this. Don't be afraid of silence. Some of us are talkers, and some of us are better listeners. If you are a talker, I want you to practice silence. I remember in one of my seminary classes, I had them be silent for 1 minute, and it felt like for them an eternity. So, don't be afraid of silence. It's okay. It's also speaking to the patient. And then be an active listener. Active listening is the process of listening to someone in a way that focuses your attention on what they are saying so that they feel heard and understood. That is so important. And that's what I said earlier. I said you can reflect back to them. Say, what I heard you say was, or you seem to be saying something about this area of your life or your health situation. Could you tell me more about that? I want to hear your story. That tells them that you're actively engaged. You're hearing what they're saying, and you're listening and paying attention, and you're wanting to be a part of that journey where they are at this time And it opens up sometimes tremendous opportunities for them to share things with you that you would have never expected. So don't be afraid to be an active listener. And that just means just giving them your full attention. That means you don't look at your watch. It means you don't look at your cell phone. Put them away, silence them. You're here. Remember, it's about the patient. So focus on the patient. And then be patient and kind. And I can tell you from experience, that's not always easy. And I used to tell my seminary students that sometimes you'll walk into a hospital room and that patient or the family are really angry about something. And unfortunately, you might be the first person they see and they're going to take it out on you. And it just comes with the territory. But I used to tell my students, don't take it personally. And I know that can be very difficult and challenging for some of us. But just let me give you this advice. If that happens, don't take it personally. Just listen to them. Invite them to share what's making them so upset. You seem really upset. Would you care to talk to me about it? And you'll find out it has nothing to do with you at all. Okay? You don't have to agree or disagree is another one. This is not a place to defend your position on eschatology or ecclesiology or any other of the doctrines of the Bible. We're not there to do a Bible study or to teach theology. We're there to meet a patient and their needs. That's not the time and the place. And you may not even agree what they say about God. I said earlier, God can defend himself, but that is not the place to get into some type of a disagreement. Okay? But the main point of what I'm saying through all of this is really just let them talk. And learn to be quiet. Be an active listener. And here's another one. Please, please don't ever offer them medical advice. You are not a doctor, even if you are. You have no right to give medical advice to a patient that's being treated by another doctor. You're not an expert. And I'm telling you, I've heard this happen so many times. And I'm telling you, if you gave medical advice to a patient, and let's say they accepted it, and they got ill from it, or had some kind of reaction to it, do you know that you've made yourself and our church making us liable for their health condition? Because they'll come back with attorneys and say, did you tell so-and-so to do so-and-so, take this treatment or take this medication over the counter? That makes us liable. It makes you liable. Don't offer medical advice. And when you go into a room, observe. What did you see? What was the room like? Were there cards? Were there flowers? I look for that, and I look for, is there devotional material? Is there a Bible there? You know, I just look around the room. I want to see if people have been visiting them. Have they been supported by somebody else, and who they are? Oh, what wonderful flowers. Could I ask you who gave you those flowers? Or all these beautiful cards. How that must make you feel. You know, so just be aware. And what should you hear? What are you hearing from them? Are they angry? Are they accepting of their situation? Are they frustrated? Do they have questions? Hear. Be aware what you hear. Beware of the smells. Is there a hurt, or is there something that you saw or witnessed in that room that you can't shake? I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I had visited a lady in the hospital, and her husband was there. And in the course of my conversation, I was trying to direct my focus on her, who was in bed, not the husband who was at the foot of the bed, and I was standing alongside as I was talking to her husband. He would not allow her to talk to me during this whole time. He kept interjecting thoughts and ideas. It basically was, I was trying to talk to her, but he was talking in this ear, everything that I needed to hear from her. Well, lo and behold, later on, within a few months of that time, this gentleman I discovered was a very controlling person, and he ended up taking his wife's personal belongings, all her assets, the property, the timber she owned, and left her. And then I thought about it afterwards, that having then learned the story, he did not want me to engage with her for fear that she was going to say something about what he was doing with her bank account and her other property. So, I mean, I'm just giving you that, and that's an example that I had. So, and I couldn't shake that, and it's been 30-some years, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I could replay that whole scene for you. So I want to kind of begin to wrap things up here, and I want to say and give you some words that hurt patients, things not to say. This is important. I know how you feel. No, you don't. So don't use that phrase. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. God wanted them home with him. Imagine saying that to someone who just lost a spouse in a hospital room. Be happy for what God has given you, what you have left. You'll get over it. Not necessarily. Life must go on. You'll feel better before you know it. And how do you know that? And it's good to move away from those negative things and to something more positive. For example, I ask people sometimes, not always, but sometimes I'll say, do you have a favorite Bible story or a Bible verse that has helped you in the past when you have been in a very difficult situation? Would you mind sharing that with me? I would love if you wouldn't mind reading the story or reading the Bible passage. And then if they don't offer that, and most of the time they don't, to be honest with you, but I invite them, or I should say, I ask them to invite me to share with them. I would say something like, would you mind if I shared the 23rd Psalm with you, or Isaiah 46, or Psalm 19, or, may I share that with you? And then may I pray for you? And I'll talk about that in just a second here. And that's important because I say to people like this, how can I pray for you? Now think about this for a minute. Why would I approach that prayer with that question? Think about it. Remember, the visit is about the patient and not about us. I really want to know how to pray for this person. I want to know specifically how I can intercede for them. Because when they tell me specific kinds of things that they need prayer for, I can approach the Heavenly Father on their behalf and be an intermediary in a sort of way, that we're praying. In other words, I'm just not praying a prayer, and I may not even pray this that has anything to do with the patient, but if they tell me what it is they want prayer for, it opens up a whole opportunity in a world of prayer that maybe some of you have never experienced. So I always close our time together. How can I pray for you today? And then shortly after that prayer, I think it's a good time to leave, unless something happens physically or there's tears, like I mentioned. You want to stay a little longer for that, because here's what happens when you leave that hospital room or the rehab facility or leave their house, whatever it might be. You know what? The blessings and your presence there for that patient and their family will remain even after you walk out the front door of the hospital. They don't forget. After I visit people in the hospital, even today, as recently as just a few days ago, I get text messages from people all the time telling us, thank you for being here, thanks for praying for us, thanks for bringing the hope and encouragement. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So even after Pat and I have driven home, they haven't forgotten it. They won't forget you either. So just remember that the blessing that you brought, the love, the presence, the care of God that you brought into that room will remain with them long after you leave. In fact, I will tell you, it will probably stay with them their entire lifetime. So that means the result of your visit will be of eternal value. So I want to thank you for joining with me today. This is our second lesson, and we'll be doing another lesson down the road here, and my good friend Victor is going to help me with that, and we're going to end up eventually having a portion on our church website that has to do just with hospital visitation, and however many lessons I end up doing, we're going to have them posted on there. So you or a family member or just a member of our congregation, because every one of us that go to our church is either going to be a patient or be visiting a patient. So all of us can learn something through this ministry. And so by having it posted on there, then it'll be accessible to us at any time you want to, and it'll be a refresher or go back over it, take some notes. It'll be great. So thank you again so much. I want to thank Victor for helping me with this today, and I want to thank you for joining us. God bless you, and thank you for being a part of our visitation ministry. Amen.